The porcelain vase hit the marble floor before the maid reached the door. It shattered behind her. She never looked back. Her suitcase bounced against her leg as she hurried across the enormous entrance hall, crying hard enough that she nearly missed the final step. Behind her stood Kong Jun. 9 years old. Barely tall enough to see over the staircase rail. And wearing the expression of a man who had just won a war. Mrs. Han watched the front doors slam shut and closed her eyes. That made 6. 6 maids in 4 months. June looked toward the broken porcelain scattered across the floor. 7 if you count the one who lasted until lunch. Mrs. Han opened her eyes again. That is not something to be proud of. June shrugged. His pulse was thumping so hard in his throat that he could feel it, but nobody looking at his face would have guessed. Because this was the part he was good at. Making people leave before they could decide to leave him. Kong Min-ho had heard the crash from upstairs. He came down slowly. That was always worse than shouting. Mrs. Han straightened immediately. June did not. Min-ho's gaze traveled from the broken vase to the open doorway, then finally to his son. How long? Mrs. Han hesitated. 3 days. Something tightened along Min-ho's jaw. The maid before this one had lasted 5. The woman before her had survived exactly 27 hours. Expensive child specialists had called June traumatized. Private tutors called him difficult. Household employees used another word when they thought Min-ho could not hear them. Cruel. Min-ho hated that word. Not because it was entirely wrong. Because every month, it was becoming harder to prove it was wrong. June turned toward the stairs. Can I go now? No. The boy stopped. Min-ho descended the last step. You will apologize. June's face hardened. To who? She left. And there it was. That tiny flash. Not triumph. Pain. Gone so fast another person might have missed it. Min-ho did not. But knowing his son was hurting had never taught him how to reach him. The following afternoon, the gates opened for Arya Kora. She stood outside with one suitcase and the uncomfortable feeling that somebody had forgotten to mention she was applying for work inside a fortress. Stone walls. Security cameras. Black SUVs. A mansion large enough to have its own weather system. Arya looked up at it. Then down at the address on her phone. Then back at the mansion. Her heart rate was probably somewhere around 112. Perfectly normal household, she muttered. The gate continued sliding open. Too late to pretend she had come to the wrong place. Arya picked up her suitcase. She had not crossed half the world to be frightened away by expensive architecture. And she certainly had not come looking for anyone to rescue her. She needed this job. That mattered more than whatever rich family madness was waiting beyond those doors. What she did not know was that Mrs. Han was standing inside the entrance hall watching her approach. And beside Mrs. Han stood the boy who had already decided Arya would be gone by morning. June stared at Arya. Arya stared back. Mrs. Han cleared her throat. Arya, this is Kong Jun. Arya smiled. Hello, June. Nothing. Not even a blink. Mrs. Han tried again. June. His eyes remained fixed on Arya. Then he looked at the suitcase. You should leave it packed. Mrs. Han's face tightened. Arya's smile barely moved. Why? Because you won't be here long. Most adults would have corrected him immediately. Arya simply tilted her head. How long are you giving me? For the first time, June looked uncertain. What? Before I run screaming through those very dramatic doors. Mrs. Han's mouth twitched. June noticed. His eyes narrowed. Tomorrow. Arya nodded thoughtfully. That's inconvenient. I already unpacked mentally. June stared at her. Arya picked up her suitcase and walked past him. His head turned slowly as she crossed the hall. That was not how this was supposed to go. And if you're already wondering what Arya just walked into, take 1 second and subscribe to Afro-Korean Collections. Every subscription tells us these are the stories you want more of, and it helps us keep bringing you cinematic stories where love finds people in the most impossible places. Because June had made a decision before Arya reached the stairs. If she would not leave willingly, he would make sure she wanted to. By 8 the next morning, June had begun. Arya opened the service room door and a bucket tipped from above. She moved one step backward. The water missed her by inches. The bucket hit the floor. Arya stared at it. Then at the thin fishing line tied to the handle. Then toward the corner. A tiny shoe disappeared behind the wall. Arya smiled. "Oh, we're doing this." She picked up the bucket. 10 minutes later, June returned to inspect the scene. Everything had been cleaned. The trap was gone. And sitting exactly where he had hidden was a folded note. He opened it. Good attempt. Needs better timing. 6 out of 10. His mouth fell open. Nobody graded his pranks. June's next battlefield was breakfast. He refused eggs, toast, fruit, milk, water. Apparently oxygen was still acceptable. Arya stood by the counter. "You're not hungry?" "No." "Fine." That caught him. Normally, adults begged, negotiated, threatened. Arya picked up her own plate and sat at the opposite end of the table. She ate. June stared. She ignored him. 2 minutes passed. Then 3. His stomach betrayed him with a loud growl. Arya looked up. June's face went red. She returned to her food. Not one word. 30 seconds later, he dragged the plate toward himself. Arya kept eating. He took one bite. Then another. And for some reason, winning without being chased made him angrier than losing. Min-ho had stopped in the doorway without announcing himself. June was eating. No argument. No broken glass. No threat to fire the cook. Min-ho watched Arya take another calm bite of toast. "What did you do?" Arya glanced over. "To breakfast." "To him." June's fork stopped. Arya looked between father and son. "I let him be hungry." Min-ho's eyes narrowed. "That worked?" "So far." June shoved another forkful into his mouth. Arya lowered her voice. "You keep treating every meal like a hostage negotiation. He knows you'll panic first." June almost smiled. Min-ho noticed that too. He did not like being corrected inside his own house. He liked even less that she might be right. On the 3rd day, June stopped playing. Arya returned to her room and found a wooden pendant on her desk snapped cleanly in two. Her fingers froze. For 1 second, the room disappeared. That pendant had traveled with her through every difficult year of her adult life. It had belonged to someone she had loved. Someone she could not replace. Behind the door, June waited. This was the moment. The tears. The shouting. The suitcase. Arya closed her eyes. Then she heard the floorboard outside creak. She knew. Her chest burned. But when she opened the door, her voice stayed calm. "June." The boy stiffened. "Come inside." Arya placed the 2 pieces on the desk. "Did you break this?" "No." She looked at him. June lasted 4 seconds. "Yes." "Why?" "Because I wanted to." "No." His eyes snapped up. Arya stepped closer. "You wanted me angry." He said nothing. "You wanted me to scream, pack my things, and prove you right." His face changed. "Barely. But enough." Arya's voice softened without becoming weak. "I am angry. Very angry." June swallowed. "But I am still here." That landed harder than shouting could have. "You will help me repair it." "I don't know how." "Then you'll learn." His jaw tightened. "You can't make me." Arya held his gaze. "No. But you can decide what kind of person you want to be after you've hurt someone." For once, June had no answer. That evening, June sat at Arya's desk for 43 minutes. He complained for the first 20. Then he stopped. The pendant would never look untouched again. A thin line would always run through the wood. June stared at it. It's still broken. Arya stood beside him. Yes. You said we'd fix it. I said we'd repair it. He looked up. That's different. Sometimes. June frowned. Arya touched the repaired wood. Some things don't go back to exactly what they were. That doesn't mean they're worthless. His eyes stayed on the pendant. And somewhere behind that stubborn little face, something opened. Not much. Just enough for light to get through. By the end of the week, Mrs. Hahn noticed something strange. June had developed a habit. At 4:15 every afternoon, he appeared near the service corridor with a book. He never turned more than 3 pages. At 4:20, Arya usually returned from the laundry wing. The moment she appeared, June would stand. Not eagerly. He had standards. He would simply happen to walk in the same direction. Every day. Mrs. Hahn said nothing. She had worked in that house long enough to recognize a miracle when one tried very hard not to look like one. The first time Kong Min-ho heard his son laugh again, he thought he had imagined it. He stopped outside the kitchen. Then it came again. Bright. Uncontrolled. 9 years old. Min-ho looked through the doorway. June had flour on his sleeve. Arya had flour on her cheek. Neither had noticed him. June laughed so hard he bent over the counter. Min-ho's chest tightened. He had forgotten that sound. Actually forgotten it. For one dangerous second, he remembered another kitchen. Another laugh. Another woman. Then Arya looked up and found him standing there. The laughter faded. Min-ho's expression closed immediately. But Arya had already seen enough. Later, Min-ho found Arya alone. You shouldn't encourage him to forget discipline. Arya blinked. He laughed. He has responsibilities. He is 9. Min-ho's gaze hardened. You don't understand this family. No. Arya wiped flour from the counter. But I understand children who are scared. That stopped him. He isn't scared. Arya looked directly at him. He's terrified. Min-ho's voice dropped. Careful. Arya's pulse jumped. There it was. The man everyone else feared. But she had watched his face when June laughed. So she pushed once more. You keep treating his grief like disobedience. Min-ho stared at her. And he keeps punishing everyone because nobody has taught him what to do with it. The kitchen suddenly felt much smaller. That night, June sat alone staring at the photograph he always kept face down. He reached for it. Stopped. Pulled his hand back. Then turned it over. His mother was smiling. June swallowed hard. If you're still here with me, I need to know who made it this far. Drop an emoji that describes exactly how you're feeling about June right now, and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Because this was the part nobody in the mansion understood. June did not hate people. He hated needing them. Needing someone meant giving them the power to disappear. And every person he loved seemed to learn that eventually. At 2:13 in the morning, June screamed. Arya woke instantly. By the time she reached his room, he was sitting upright, breathing so fast his shoulders shook. Don't touch me. Arya stopped. All right. Go away. She stayed near the door. No. His eyes filled. I said go. You can be angry tomorrow. He dragged in another breath. Tonight, you're scared. The fight went out of him. Not slowly. All at once. June looked down. I couldn't find her. Arya's throat tightened. Your mother. He nodded. And that was the first time he admitted her existence to Arya. Arya sat on the floor. Not the bed. He had told her not to touch him. She respected that. June stared at his mother's photograph. She said she'd come back. Arya said nothing. She didn't. His voice cracked. My dad says it wasn't her choice. Arya looked at him. But she still left. There it was. The wound beneath every broken vase. Every insult. Every maid sent running. June rubbed his eyes angrily. People always leave. Arya answered quietly. Sometimes they do. He looked at her, almost offended. You're supposed to say they don't. I don't lie to children. His mouth trembled. Arya continued. But some people stay as long as they are able. June looked away. Are you leaving? Not tonight. That answer seemed to matter more than a promise she could not control. Min-ho heard every word. He stood outside the room long after June's breathing finally slowed. Arya came out and nearly walked into him. Neither spoke at first. Min-ho looked toward his sleeping son. He hasn't said that to me. Arya lowered her voice. Maybe he doesn't know how. Min-ho's eyes moved to her. And somehow he knows how with you. There was no accusation in it. That was worse. There was pain. Arya suddenly saw the truth. June was not the only person in that house who had learned to survive by becoming difficult to reach. The next morning, Arya noticed the door. She had passed it before. But now she noticed something else. It was locked from the outside. And beneath the edge of the runner lay a small brass key. Arya bent down. She did not pick it up. Don't. June's voice came from behind her. She straightened. His face had gone pale. What is it? My mother's room. Arya looked back at the key. June stepped closer. My father doesn't let anyone inside. Then why is the key out here? June did not know. And that frightened him more than the room itself. Arya did not enter that day. But somebody else had. The dust around the threshold had been disturbed. A photograph inside the room sat crooked. The jewelry box was open. And later that afternoon, Park Min-ho quietly informed Kong Min-ho that one security camera on the upper floor had gone dark for 11 minutes. Min-ho's expression changed. Who accessed the corridor? We're checking. Check faster. Because for the first time, the problem inside his house might not have been his son. 2 days later, a temporary staff member muttered something ugly about Arya beneath his breath. June heard it. The boy who had spent weeks trying to drive her out stepped between them. Say it again. The man froze. Arya blinked. June's face went cold. Say it where my father can hear you. Nobody moved. The employee apologized. June turned away as if none of it mattered. Arya followed him. You didn't have to do that. I know. Thank you. He shrugged. Then, without looking back. He was wrong. Arya smiled. That was all. But Min-ho saw it from the staircase. And something dangerous began settling into his chest. Pride. Relief. And something else every time he looked at Arya. Min-ho had begun noticing ridiculous things. The sound of Arya's laugh. The fact that June looked for her every morning. The way she rolled her eyes when Min-ho gave an order she disliked. Once, she caught him watching. He looked away first. That irritated him for the rest of the day. He had spent 20 years making powerful men nervous. Now one woman could raise an eyebrow and ruin his concentration. And Arya had no idea. Or at least he hoped she did not. For 3 weeks, the mansion changed. Breakfast became louder. Dinner stopped feeling like a board meeting. June smiled more. Min-ho came home earlier. Arya pretended not to notice. One morning, June made a joke so terrible that Arya laughed into her tea. Min-ho nearly smiled. Nearly. June pointed at him. I saw that. Min-ho's face became blank. You saw nothing. Arya laughed harder. For a few seconds, the room felt normal. That was the danger. Because people only realize they have begun feeling safe when something threatens to take safety away. The first warning appeared outside the gate. A black sedan. Same place. 3 nights in 1 week. Security approached it twice. Both times, it disappeared before they arrived. Park Min-ho increased patrols. Kang Min-ho doubled the guards. Nobody told June. Nobody told Arya. But on the 4th night, Arya looked through the window and saw headlights turn off beyond the wall. Her stomach tightened. She mentioned it to Park. He told her not to worry. That was exactly when she began worrying. The envelope appeared beneath Arya's door the next morning. No name. No message. Only a black flower pressed onto a card. Arya stared at it. Then at the repaired pendant beside her hand. She should have told Min-ho. Instead, she slipped the card into a drawer. Why? Because June had finally stopped asking whether she was leaving. And Arya knew what would happen if Min-ho decided the safest solution was to remove her from the estate. So she made the worst possible decision for the best possible reason. She kept quiet. Across the city, Lee Sang-ho received confirmation. The woman had found the warning. He turned the black flower between his fingers. His associate asked, "Do we move now?" Sang-ho smiled. No. Why wait? Because fear is useful. He looked through the rain. But attachment is better. He had watched Kang Min-ho survive threats, arrests, betrayals and blood feuds. Min-ho had very few weaknesses. His son was one. Now there was another. And the second weakness had no idea she had been identified. The locked room finally opened because June asked Arya to go inside with him. He wanted his mother's photograph. Nothing else. But while June searched a drawer, Arya noticed an envelope inside the jewelry box. It carried Min-ho's name. Still sealed. Behind it was a photograph. June's mother. Park Min-ho. And a third man Arya recognized from the black sedan security image. She stared. Arya? She slid the photograph back. Too late. June had seen her face. What? Nothing. His eyes narrowed. Arya had just lied to the one child who trusted her because she usually refused to lie. That evening, June heard Arya inside his father's study. He stopped outside. Arya's voice came through the door. I think I should leave for a few days. June froze. Min-ho answered something too low to hear. Then Arya. If staying here puts him in danger, I won't do that to him. June's breathing changed. He did not hear the rest. He did not hear Arya say she would return. He did not hear Min-ho refuse to let Sang-ho dictate who remained under his roof. June heard only the sentence his fear had been waiting for. I should leave. And suddenly, every old wound became new again. June waited until they were alone. Why don't you just go? Arya blinked. What? You heard me. His voice shook. Arya stepped closer. June, what's wrong? He backed away. Don't pretend. Pretend what? That you care. The words hit hard. Arya's face changed. June saw it. And because he was hurting, he pushed harder. You're exactly like everyone else. June. You stayed because my father pays you. Arya's chest tightened. That isn't true. You're a maid. He swallowed. You're not family. The room went still. Arya's eyes filled before she could stop them. And June knew instantly that he had gone too far. Arya closed her bedroom door. Then the tears came. Not because a 9-year-old had insulted her. Because she understood why. He had finally trusted her enough to be afraid of losing her. And now he had wounded her before she could wound him. Arya sat on the bed. The repaired pendant lay on the desk. Broken. Mended. Scars still visible. She wiped her face. Tomorrow, she would explain everything. Tomorrow, she would tell June she was not abandoning him. Tomorrow felt close enough to trust. That was the mistake. June reached Aria's door 10 minutes later. He raised his fist. Couldn't knock. Lowered it. Raised it again. His heart was pounding at exactly the speed it had the day his mother never came home. He whispered through the wood. "Aria?" No answer. He almost apologized. Almost. Then pride won. He walked away. It would be the last thing he regretted before morning. At 6:12 the next morning, June knocked. No answer. He opened the door. The room was empty. His stomach dropped. Aria? Nothing. Her suitcase was still there. Her coat. Her shoes. The pendant. June stared at it. Then screamed her name. This time, the whole mansion heard him. Min-ho saw the suitcase. Then the pendant. Then the unlocked window. His face emptied. Park. The head of security appeared. Seal the estate. June looked between them. She left. Min-ho crouched beside the bed. No. June's voice cracked. She said she was going. She didn't take anything. That was when June understood. His knees weakened. Min-ho stood. Pull every camera. Park disappeared. Min-ho looked at the open window again. Whoever had taken Aria had entered his house. And nobody entered Kong Min-ho's house without help. The footage gave them 9 seconds. 9. A service door opening at 3:18. A black vehicle entering the lower garage. One camera freezing. Another going dark. Then the vehicle leaving 7 minutes later. Park stared at the screen. The access code was internal. Min-ho's voice became very quiet. Whose? Park hesitated. That is what we're verifying. Min-ho looked at him. Verify faster. Because the question was no longer whether someone inside his organization had betrayed him. The question was who. June sat on Aria's floor holding the pendant. I told her to leave. Min-ho stopped. June's face crumpled. I told her she wasn't family. Min-ho crossed the room. His son looked up. What if she thought I meant it? Min-ho knelt in front of him. For once, he had no perfect answer. So he gave the only true one. We bring her home. June gripped the pendant harder. And then? Min-ho looked toward the window. Then you tell her yourself. Kong Min-ho disappeared. Not physically. Something else vanished. The father. The man who had sat at breakfast. The man who nearly smiled when June laughed. What remained was the person Seoul's criminal world knew. He made 3 calls. Nobody asked why. Names began moving. Vehicles were traced. Warehouse leases checked. Traffic cameras pulled. And by sunrise, Lee Sang-ho's people had begun disappearing from their usual places. Not because Min-ho was angry. Anger was noisy. This was calculation. Someone had taken Aria. Min-ho intended to make that decision expensive. At 7:41, Park found the car. An abandoned industrial district. A warehouse leased through 3 shell companies. One of them connected to Sang-ho. Park called Min-ho. We have a location. Min-ho was already moving. Then Park added. There is something else. Min-ho stopped. The service door code used last night was issued to someone inside your inner circle. A name appeared on the monitor. Park stared at it. His face changed. Min-ho heard the hesitation. Who? Park swallowed. Someone who was also assigned to your wife's security detail the week she died. The warehouse sat 34 minutes away. Min-ho reached it in 21. The gate was open. One light burned above the loading bay. Too easy. Park's warning repeated in his head. Same security detail. Same inner circle. Same week his wife died. For years, Min-ho had believed grief was the worst thing inside his house. Now he understood something else had been living there with them. A lie. And Arya had stumbled close enough to it that someone had decided she could not remain free. Arya heard footsteps outside the warehouse office. Slow. Unhurried. She lifted her head. The door opened. A man stepped into the light. Arya's breath caught. Because she had seen his face before. Not in the black sedan. Not at the estate gates. In the photograph from June's mother's room. The man smiled. You found something that did not belong to you. Arya's pulse hammered. Who are you? He moved closer. And then he said the words that made every piece of the story suddenly more dangerous. Ask Kong Min-ho what really happened to his wife. Outside, engines roared into the warehouse yard. Arya turned toward the sound. The man smiled wider. He came faster than I expected. And that is where we have to leave them, because what Kong Min-ho discovers next could destroy everything Arya has fought to protect. If you want part 2, tell me in the comments. Make it impossible for me to ignore you, because Arya's story is nowhere near finished. Because Min-ho had come to rescue the woman his son now considered family. But before the night was over, he was about to discover that the person who helped take Arya might also be the person who helped take June's mother from him years ago. And this time, Kong June was not going to survive another disappearance quietly.